Hey, what's up you guys? So in this video, I'm going to share with you guys the 5 habits that I started implementing in my life that absolutely changed my life. So with that being said, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button on this video. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright you guys, so the very first habit that I started implementing in my life that changed my life was that I started implementing the habit of becoming much more conscious, much more aware, and much more intentional about the choices that I was making and the choices that I was not going to make in my life on a day-to-day basis and just overall. Okay, so let me explain to you why I even decided to start implementing this habit in my life in the first place. So basically, like in a nutshell, my life lacked a lot of structure and overall direction, because what would happen like on a typical day is like, I would know what I would want to do or I would like to get done. And then what would happen is like, somebody would ask me like, hey, you want to do this, or you want to help me with that, or you want to go over here, or I would just do something as simple as like turn on the TV or go on my phone, and next thing you know, my life and my day is headed in a completely different direction than what I was actually intending or hoping to get done in that day. So this is why basically it lacked structure and purpose and a plan. So like they say, if you do not create a plan, then you plan to fail. And that is exactly what was happening on a day-to-day basis. And then when you start adding this up over time, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and then you look, easily like 1 year later and you're like, man, there were so many things I wanted to get done in that year and I didn't get it done. And it's all because you were not being, or at least in my case, I was not being purposeful or intentional about the things that I was doing, and the things also that I would say, hey, I'm not going to do these things, but then I would do them anyways. So this is why I had to start implementing the habit of getting very clear about the things that I wanted to get done, and then make sure that on a day-to-day basis that I was not doing the things that were going to make it harder for me or that would get in the way of me accomplishing those things, and that instead I would focus all my time and my attention on knocking out those tasks that I want to get done. So say, how would I do this? I bought a whiteboard, I put it up in my room, and let's say I'd write down maybe 3-4 things. Sometimes the list is shorter, sometimes the list is longer, sometimes it could be 2, sometimes it could be 5 things. But I've numbered them, from the highest important thing I want to get done on that day to the least important thing, and I'd be okay, ideally I want to get these 4 or 5 things or these 2 things done today. And it could be hey, today I'm going to come home from work, I'm going to record a YouTube video because hey, I've been slacking and I need to do it. It's okay, cool, do it. That's your highest priority once you get out of work. Okay, cool, boom, you did it. Now the next thing might be hey, I'm going to start cleaning up the house. All right, cool, did that. Then it'd be hey, on the back end of the day, I'm going to help my wife fold and put away all the clothes that we've been saying we're going to do. All right, cool. Those are the 3 most important things that I want to get done on that one day. And then I would just, like I said, I would do those in that order. And now I'm much more satisfied because of the outcome that I'm getting, because I'm doing the things that I said that I would do, and I'm actually getting them done. And that makes me feel good. And then I just carry that over to the next day and the next day. And just doing this allowed me to just be very efficient with my time, very purposeful and intentional in accomplishing the things that I want to get done. And it's just overall is very satisfying because there's a sense of accomplishment, because you're moving more in the direction that you want to, instead of just drifting off, getting distracted, and then growing frustrated because you're not accomplishing the things that you wanted to do. So that's why I had to get very clear, very intentional, and very purposeful with the decisions that I was making on a day-to-day basis. And that's why I implemented that habit of being intentional and purposeful about the decisions that I was making and the things that I was going to do on a day-to-day basis. Alright guys, so the next habit that I started implementing in my life that absolutely changed my life for the better was when I started implementing the habit of managing my finances. Now, why did I start managing my finances? Well, the truth is because when I was not managing my finances, ultimately it was not a good time, and my finances ended up managing my life. Now, what do I mean exactly when I say that? So when I say that, it means I was not paying attention to the amount of income I was bringing in, or the amount of income that I was putting out, or the areas that it was going out to, or how much I was putting, out in those areas. It was a big mess, just believe me. So because of this, it means I was obviously not using my money in the best way possible. I was not, even building wealth of any types in any way whatsoever. My money was not making me money. It was just an absolute mess. I was not hitting any of the financial goals because there was no structure in place. Like I said, it was a big mess. And because of this, I would grow frustrated. I'd be annoyed because I'm like, well, I'm making money. Like, I don't know what's the problem. Like, maybe I just need to make more money. Like, what is the answer? Ultimately, I came to find out like making more money was not going to fix the situation. It would have just meant like, hey, yes, like you're bringing more money home. You are just a higher earner, but nevertheless, like because you're not paying attention to how you're using this money to get the most out of the money that you're making, then it's like you're just gonna have more money and the same problem. And that's where like hit, the fact where I had to start implementing and learning the habit and implementing it in my life on a day-to-day basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis of managing my finances. So I had to get clear about, hey, let's start looking like how much income do you have coming in? How much income do you have going out? What are the different areas you have this income going out to? And do you want your income going out to those places? And then start getting rid of the places and things that you're spending your money on where you're like, hey, I don't need to be doing this, or I don't want to do this, or I don't even use that anymore, but I'm still paying for it. All of these types of things like that, and then start getting real clear like, hey, I want to do this and I'm not doing it yet. Let me start, dedicating some money to there. All of these types of things. And when I got very clear, very purposeful, and very intentional about the outcomes that I wanted to have with my finances and managing the amounts of money that I would be spending in the different categories of my life, that is when I started seeing my financial life like truly change in like a dramatic way. And I'm so glad that I did. And that is exactly the second habit that absolutely changed my life, implementing the habit of managing my finance. All right, you guys, so the very next habit that I started implementing in my life that completely changed my life for the better is that I started implementing the habit of valuing my time. So let me just go a little deeper on this topic. So what do I mean when I say I started valuing my time and that I made it a habit on a continual basis? So the problem is that I simply was just not valuing my time. So what did that look like? Like I basically just would assume that I have I have a long life ahead of me. I assume that I'm going to get, to live to an old age, that I'm going to be healthy. I'm assuming, that nothing bad's going to happen to me in the short term and that I'm going to die. Like I'm assuming all these things, like they're all just assumptions. But because I'm just thinking that way and I don't know, like there's no guarantee like, hey, I'm going to live to 100 or I'm going to live to 90. Like these are just assumptions that I'm making. And it's because I'm making those, the thing that's allowing me to think that way is because I'm not valuing the time. I'm just assuming that I have that, I have that to look forward to. That time is just going to keep working in my favor. But the truth is, and the reality is, I don't know how much time I have, and I didn't know that, and I was not thinking about it that way. I just took it for granted because, someone can easily be here today and then they're gone tomorrow, or you see somebody and then a few hours later you find out hey, they're not here anymore, or they're perfectly fine one day and then they're sick and then boom, next thing you know, the person's gone. And it's I was not valuing the time that I had, or as a result of not valuing the time that I had, I would not use that time in the best way possible. And so when I started implementing this habit, as I became more aware that I was not valuing my time, then I started thinking completely different about okay, well, I want to start valuing my time. So what are the how's that going to change the way that I start thinking and acting and behaving? So, and how would my life ultimately look once I start valuing my time? Well, it changed everything because then I switched all right, I don't want to, work somewhere where I'm getting paid by the hour. I want to work somewhere where I'm getting paid on the results that I get. So that my job, they don't look at it hey, we pay you this much per hour. They look at it hey, we give you a job to do it. You complete that job in however long it takes you, you're going to make that amount of money based on the job, not on how long it took you. So I like that, right? And that was only made possible when I changed the way that I valued my time, because prior to that, I didn't work a job like that. I was just getting paid by the hour. So when I wanted to make more money, I would just work longer and longer and longer, going on my days off, do all of these extra things. Or they would be hey, you want to come do this side project with us, or you want to stay later. All of these things that I would do to make more money, exhausting myself more, having to commit more of myself to try to make up for the fact that I wasn't earning as much. So that was me not valuing my time. When I started to value my time, I was like, okay, I need to do something because my time is precious, my time is important. Then I started thinking like, no, I don't want to give up more of my time to try to get more. I want to give up as little of my time as possible to try to get as much as possible. And like I said, that's where things changed. That's why I changed jobs. And then like ultimately that's what led to me like things like, you know, say building wealth and looking like, hey, I want my money to grow for me, but I don't want to have to like go do something that's going to tie up a lot of my time for my money to grow. So then I start looking at things like, okay, how could I do that? Like, what's a smart way to do it? Oh, you know, it doesn't like take a whole lot to look at, you know, real estate investing and realize like, hey, especially here in California, like, oh, you can put some money into real estate and it doesn't got to be a lot of money for you to control that property, put a tenant in there, let them live in that property, and the property appreciates. So you're making money, but it's not costing you time. Like, it's not costing you a lot, and it's definitely not costing you as much time as maybe somebody might think. Another way where I started valuing my time is like, a lot of times in conversations, people, you know, is reality. Like, you get into like conversation points where people want to argue their point back and forth one way or another. When I have a conversation with somebody, if I realize like, hey, this conversation is not really going to be productive, it's not benefiting me, it's not benefiting them, I'm really quick to just like let that conversation go, because like my time is precious. I don't got time to just like sit here and do something that is not going to be beneficial for either of us. So I really like do not like spending my time on anything that is not going to be of a beneficial gain to me, or is not going to be helpful to somebody, or, you know, or just mutually benefit for both of us. So it's like, because I value my time, like I don't want to just waste it. I don't know that I'm going to have more time to get to use, so I want to use the time that I have to the best of my advantage. Now that doesn't mean like, hey, I just go around and I just only talk to people and meet people that I could like get something out of, or I'm like, you know, where I could like actually benefit from some, you know, benefit from them. But it's like, I just don't want it to be wasted time talking about like pointless things, superficial things, things that are like non-intelligent conversations. I don't want to talk to somebody just about celebrities or things like that. Like, I want to talk about things that are meaningful in my life, things that hold value or purpose, or that are important to me. And all of this like came about when I started valuing my time, because like I said, I don't know how much that I have, and I would like to use the time that I do have to the best of my ability. I'm not perfect. Sure, from time to time I waste time, but I just, you know, I just try to look to improve. And like, you know, like where I am at right now in my life, as far as like, you know, valuing my time, is significantly like improved from the point where I was just simply just like not valuing my time whatsoever. And like I said, it completely changed my life. So yeah, implementing the habit of valuing your time, it's huge. Alright you guys, so the very next habit that I started implementing in my life that completely changed my life is investing. Now, why did I start implementing investing into my life, and how did it completely change my life? Well, I started implementing investing in my life because ultimately it goes back to the fact that I knew I did not want to work for the rest of my entire life until the point that I die. So I knew really quick, like, hey, it is not a practical option for me or for anyone else to just say, hey, I'm going to go to work every single day, I'm going to get paid, and I'm just going to set aside some money, save my way, you know, to financial freedom. Like, I knew that that was not going to happen. Like, the money is going to just like pile up too slow. It's not going to grow at a fast enough rate that I could ever get ahead financially to the point where I could be like, okay, I saved up enough money where I no longer need to worry about working, and I can live out the rest of my days and actually enjoy those days based on the money that I saved up. Like, that is not a practical, viable option. So I knew like, hey, I need to look at other proven ways, because I don't want to have to try to figure out the next new way so I could ultimately reach financial freedom when there's a bunch of people who've already accomplished it ahead of me. And now let me just start doing what those people did that allowed them to get their financial freedom, and let me start doing that. So I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So I looked and I'm like, hey, people became millionaires through investing in real estate. So what did I do? I went out and I made sure that I invested in real estate so ultimately I could start building my wealth. I invest in single family properties, so that's exactly what I went out and got. It was easy for me to understand, so that's why I chose that particular, you know, segment of the real estate market. Now I don't only invest into real estate. I was like, okay, well, I look at people that invest in the stock market. I'm like, well, it looks like there's a lot of people that invest in the stock market. They got a lot of wealth. And I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't seem like it's too hard to understand. I took the time, learned about it, made a lot of mistakes, fell down, bumped my head, all that. But then ultimately I was like, okay, I think I got a much better understanding on it. And I made it a habit to consistently invest into the stock market on a regular basis because I know that I have the goal of ultimately reaching financial freedom. So I built the habit of making sure I consistently, out of the money that I earn, I always have leftover money that is going to go to those investments and fund them, because basically I'm investing in my financial freedom. And this money is going to compound and grow over the years. And then ultimately at some point, I will call it quits in the working world and I will be financially free. And it's going to be because of the fact that I made investing a habit. So like I said, I started investing because I wanted to reach financial freedom. I started with the end in mind, and I have my financial number that I want to reach. I'm not about to share that with you guys if you guys were thinking about that, but I would be curious if you guys are personally, who you guys that are watching this video, have you guys started investing? And if so, like, what are your financial goals? Like, don't tell me like, I don't want to know your number. I just want to know, like, are you investing, because you want to reach financial freedom? Are you like, what are you trying to accomplish as far as like your investing goals? Are you trying to get like, hey, I just want to, build like a massive real estate portfolio, things like that? That's what I mean. Don't tell me like how much money you're trying to get. But nevertheless, this is the habit that I started implementing in my life, so that way I could actually change my life in a real serious way. And because I knew that I started with the end in mind, I knew what outcome I wanted to get. So I knew I needed to have this consistent habit in order to reach that outcome. And that's, like I said, I implemented the habit of investing. All right, you guys, so the very next habit that I started implementing in my life that completely changed my life for the better is the continuous habit, an ongoing thing to this day. I still do it all the time, every day, is I just ask myself, how can I improve myself on a daily basis? And I make this my constant habit because I just have this desire to just always try to be a little bit better of a person than I already currently am. And it's not because like there's some like end goal that I'm getting to, but I just like the idea of just trying to be a little bit better than I already am. Sometimes it feels like I'm not making any progress, at all. And I think the thing that is like the most helpful in this is like, you've got to realize, and it's at least the way that I think about it, is it's self-improvement. It's me improving myself. I'm not trying to think about like, what does some other person think about me, or can other people notice the changes in me? Not that. Like, that's not the point, and that's not like the habit that I'm trying to like implement. Not like I'm trying to, implement the habit of improving so people will say, oh look, he's improving himself. Like, no, that's not the point. Like, the point is like, I want to improve the person who I am, so ultimately I could just be the better version of me, and that will only improve the quality of my life, and it will like more than likely compound in a lot of different areas of my life. So that's going to affect, like, it's going to impact the relationships that I have in my life, both private, personal. It's going to impact my financial life. It's going to impact my health. It's going to impact the whole totality of my life. So it just, to me, is overall very satisfying to just, like, you never are really going to be, or at least in my case, I'm never really just absolutely like feeling content or satisfied. I actually grow frustrated when I feel like I'm not at least getting a little bit better, no matter how small or incremental like the improvement might be. Just as long as I know I'm moving forward, then I'm completely fine with that. So this habit right here is really big for me. It's just the continual habit of just looking how I as an individual can just improve myself, in any way possible. And then I just ask myself that on an everyday basis, or a monthly basis, like, hey, let's just kind of take like, a look at who you are, how you are being as a person, and in what areas can you just like improve. And then I just try to make little tiny small improvements, as small as they might possibly be, but just nevertheless just implement them, and ultimately like let the change come about, and just keep going and refining the process along the way. All right, so look, like all of these habits right here, they absolutely changed my life. And I know that the chances are, even if you just only implement one of these, the chances are it will tremendously impact and change your life in a dramatic way. So if you enjoyed this video, what I want to invite you to do next is click on this video that pops up right here on the screen, and I will see you in that next video.